Danny, welcome to Locked In.
Thanks,
We've been
man.
talking about this for, I think, a couple months now. We were talking on Instagram and glad we could make this happen.
It's a pleasure. I definitely think that there's a lot that when it comes to situations like incarceration, I mean, you're doing this now because you were able to actually see what the hell's going on and a lot of injustices. I mean, I'm sure when you did your time, you saw how most of the correctional officers are more crooked than the actual inmates, so you got to taste, and that's why you're doing it. And you gave me the inspiration to come and really share my story because I got a hell of a one.
You definitely do. I was reading a bunch of the stuff. It's always interesting when guys start sending me like their paperwork and stuff. I'm like, dude, I don't need it. I believe your story. Anyone that's willing to take the time out to come out here and, share all that, it's up for the viewers to form an opinion.
Right.
Not me. I'm not one of those hosts that are demanding to see some paperwork on the shot, on the spot. It just puts you in an uncomfortable position.
And not only that, something because of the way I was raised, doing something like this, just being in front of cameras is something that I'm, even till this day, still getting used to. I can't get myself to consistently be able to post or share anything like that. Because it was just the way that I was born in 1987. All right, so I'm 37 years old right now. And from when I was growing up, people want to be away from the cameras. That's the way I was. The cameras were the enemy. So it's being the transition into trying to, and now that I could actually say I'm a reformed criminal. All right, so I could come on here and I could do this now, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna tell my story. I'm not gonna mention any names that shouldn't be mentioned or anything like that. But I'm definitely gonna, I'm gonna tell you, just the truth, man. That's what needs to be said, is just the truth, and because there's also a lot of people that I was raised with, that see all the trouble, right? And from a perspective, if you don't really know what's going on, but you just see the trouble, it makes it, and I think that I deserve to be able to just come and get it out there, just to, bring awareness also too, because that's the main thing. I really, I don't know how, I want to see a change so bad, but somebody like me with a criminal record like me, my voice, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's very tough. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, let's start. Let's start. I'll go from the beginning in, right?
The floor is yours, my friend.
I was born
it seems like
in,
you're already hyped up.
upstate New York, right? Orange County, a very iconic area. 1969 Woodstock in Bethel, New York was there. We got Newburgh, New York, Middletown, New York, where the 845. So in the feds, we'd be the 845 car, And, but yeah, definitely I would say iconic area and the iconic time that I grew up in, because when I grew up into the, I was very into cannabis, right? That's part of I would say my entrance into the streets. And, I started using cannabis at 11 years old. And my environment, I was blessed, I should say, to be able to grow up with some really good people, experience isn't an experience without the people that's in the experience. And I was really blessed to grow up with some really, really great people. I mean, also there's some shysters and everything, but the people that are close to me, that I could say that I love, I got to experience some real genuine people. So I grew up during the, let's say, $6,000 a pound sour diesel days and Purple Haze, 1999, 2000, 2001, when the real sour diesel first just came out, and it was $500 an ounce, 0.5 20s. It's 6,000 or 6,400 a pound. So that's what sour diesel was going for back then. Right now weed's going for $1,000 a pound indoor or whatever. So this is the days when people were actually really making money off of weed. And also Hayes too. You know, we had the iconic Hayes, Washington Heights, right? First time I ever been to Washington Heights, I was 13 years old. I was with two friends of mine, and we're, an hour away from the city, you know? Never forget this. I'm 13 years old. I'm with 4 white boys, right? 3 Irish kids and me. I was born as a Russian Jew, right? And I'm in a Russian Jew in a shirt, I'm wearing my friend's shirt that says "I love Jesus," and like some moccasins, right? And we go to this block, and they were like, "Oh, this is the block. This is where the Haze is," and they're all scared to get out and go get the weed. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll go get it. Give me the money, right? So I get out of the car, I meet this guy, right? And this is back when Washington Heights was crazy. You know what I mean? It wasn't the 4th of July, but there was fireworks going off like on the block and shit like that. Like little firecrackers being lit everywhere, you know? 173rd and Autobahn, you know, that whole area over there. So that's, you know, Hayes back then, it was iconic. You know, everybody, that was it. The Piff, the Sour, I grew up throughout that whole thing. Kush. But when I had my childhood, I had a wonderful family, fortunate family. My mother and father came from Russia, and they had a very unfortunate life. My father was an orphan in Russia. My mother also had a very tough, abusive life. Single parent, you know, if she had a father who was abusive, I guess left. And, you know, so when they did come, they do arranged marriages there. You know, my mother and father didn't get to, you know, even know each other when they got married. And my dad was also a Soviet Union military during 1970s, you know, during that time, sergeant in the Russian army. And so he came to America and he started driving a cab in Brooklyn, right? And eventually, within a couple years, they left Brooklyn, went upstate to Middletown. I have an uncle that came a little before my father that started in the furniture business. So my father was able to, he was blessed. My uncle put him on, right? And from there, it became very successful. But unfortunately, when success comes and there's no emotional regulation, stability, and there's addiction in the family, you know, because from trauma comes addiction. And my father had a traumatic life. My mother had a traumatic life, but their addiction wasn't drugs or alcohol. My father has like a gambling addiction. My mother had like a shopping addiction or whatever else, you know, she was doing, but nothing chemically. But it took me a while to really understand this. I had to go through a lot of healing and learning myself to really understand the life that I went through, you know? So once a divorce happens, you know, and it's kind of unheard of from where we're Gorsky Jews. I don't know if, from Azerbaijan, Baku, Azerbaijan, which is on the border of Armenia, Turkey, is right there in the Caucasus Mountains. So we're Gorsky Mountain Jews. And for a family to be split like that it's almost it's like unheard of in a way because it's very cultural. And when it did happen, and it was very very tough. I was around 7 to 9 years old, and my father got remarried within 2 weeks after the divorce. Arranged marriage again. My mother, she was just wanting to have a life, you know, being able to date and try to find true love, I guess. So at these times, you know, my father, he was an orphan. His mother died. His father got remarried. They gave him away to the orphanage. So I guess the way that I look at it is because it happened to my father and with his new wife, because she didn't accept us, he thought it was just normal to just be like, okay, you know what? It's, you know, to step back kind of in a way. But he was present there financially, right? But I didn't have the from around the age 9 years old, I didn't have the pleasure of having parents sleeping in the house anymore, you know? So my mother was never home. She worked 2 jobs. And then, you know, she had her social life and stuff like that. So I became on my own from a very young age. Very young. So now to around 10, 11 years old, I would say 6th grade is when I would say I jumped off the porch, they call it, you know? And, you know, what's really important is marijuana, right? People don't understand now how back in these days, people's lives really got affected. And my life was one of those. I lost my whole childhood from basically marijuana, put in institutions and everything. So the weed, 11 years old, by the time 12, 13 years old comes, this is in Goshen, New York, upstate New York, you know, and it's a town, like a hippie town, you know? It was a high school where people were literally smoking blunts in the bathroom, you know? I don't know, this wouldn't happen these days, but it was like one of those type of schools where there was just, you know, people smoking cigarettes in the bathroom, like, and there was, you know, it was different. So now when I go to Tampa, Florida, which is my transition, so because of the lack of supervision that was at home, I was doing terrible in school, right? I was failing school. I think the last grade that I passed was 5th grade. 6th grade, I got forced pass. 7th grade, I got forced pass. 8th grade, I got forced pass. So whenever I used to go to school, I was completely behind. And because of everything that was going on at home, I was always in a cloud. So I know school was not going to be my future, you know? I want to make sure I don't miss any, like, important points here. So I would say now when 8th grade comes, this is when I think that things really starting to get drastic, because I had an incident where I actually died from alcohol. The first time I ever drank alcohol, I'm at a party, and of course as a kid, you know, I'm a kid, I never drank before. I don't know how you got to drink it, how long it's going to take to kick in, right? I drank 20 shots back to back of Smirnoff vodka. I think I was like maybe 85 pounds or 90 pounds. Small kid, you know? And next thing you know, I wake up and they told me my heart stopped beating, 0.36 blood alcohol level. And so the alcohol poisoning from there. And then at that party, there was like weed, and everybody stuffed the weed in my pockets. So I guess the cops came, found the weed and a pipe in my pockets and shit like that. And so that was really like the first run-in with the law, but it really didn't turn into anything because we were so young. But then 9th grade comes, and then there's something called, this is very important. Now we're getting to the important part. I call it the training, okay? The training grounds for the justice system is the juvenile justice system, family court, all right? Pins petition. These are all things that are, I really firmly believe are fundamentally meant for children to keep repeating back in and out. And now, back then, marijuana was looked as a drug, right? And you got to look at it this way. As kids, now these are kids, we're talking about 13 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old. For a kid that's just experiencing with marijuana, right? Let's say if you put him into a substance abuse program, they're gonna tell this kid that he's an addict. They're gonna put him into NA programs. And listen, I have nothing against NA. I think sobriety is a beautiful thing, okay? But it's a little old school, all right? There's people that use cannabis for a medical reason, and if they went into Narcotics Anonymous, they're like, shunned, or they don't get the same respect as somebody else that's in there, let's say that's on methadone, right? And I think that has to be updated. And I'm also a firm believer that whatever you tell yourself you are, that's what you're going to be. And to implant that into children, you're teaching them that you have to surrender, right? You have to go by this program. You are powerless, right? And you can't fight. That's what I was taught as a kid when I was going through these institutions. And the way that I got into these programs was not through pins. I went through pins for a little bit. It didn't last long. What ended up happening was my mother ended up, because things were getting so crazy, my mother ended up sending me, and I have a brother that's 1.5 years older than me, to live with my oldest brother that's 10 years older in Tampa, Florida. And by this time, you know, we jumped off the porch, right? Let's say that. But it was just weed, though. There was no, like, hard drugs or anything. But it was just weed. And when we get... wait, this is very important, too. Before we get sent to Tampa, Florida, we were friends with somebody, I think that's really important to mention, that influenced our lives from a young age. Malcolm X's grandson, Malcolm Shabazz. He passed away in Mexico. So I was fortunate enough to grow up with Malcolm Shabazz Jr., or the grandson, you know, Malcolm Shabazz's grandson, the one that allegedly burned down the grandmother's house in Queens. And so me and Malcolm came on house arrest from that whole incident that happened. His mother lived upstate in Middletown, and he ended up going to Goshen schools. And when we were younger, the hangout over there was the mall. So in the mall is where all the gang, like this is where the Bloods were. Malcolm was a Blood, right? And so that's where, you know, I think I was maybe 11 years old at that time, and I was hanging out with Malcolm. And, you know, my main thing is, when I was a criminal, I just hustled. But when I was a kid, I experienced, right, with stealing one time. This is back in 2000, 2001. This is when Tony Hawk just first came out. I don't remember the first PlayStation Tony Hawk. Of course,
yeah.
Right. There was a store called FYE.
Yeah, we used to have one at the mall here. I used to love getting movie posters to put in my bedroom from FYE.
Right. Oh my God, Ian.
Hey, Locked In listeners, let me hit you with a question. What's the biggest scam you've fallen for? Maybe it was a shady deal on the inside. Maybe it was a too good to be true opportunity. But let me tell you, one of the biggest scams that's out there is happening right now in your own bank account, and you probably don't even realize it. I'm talking about subscriptions you forgot about, sneaky charges that hit your card every single month for stuff you don't even use. I was going through my expenses the other day, and Rocket Money found 3 that I had no clue I was still paying for. 3. That's money down the drain. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and even lowers your bills so you can keep more of your hard-earned cash. With Rocket Money, you get all your subscriptions in one place, no more digging through old emails to see what's draining your wallet, a clear view of your spending across all your accounts, alerts if your bills go up, or if there's suspicious spending. They even negotiate your bills for you, so you don't have to waste hours arguing with customer service. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved people over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's real money back in your pocket. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedin today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedin. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockedin. Don't let these companies hustle you. Take back control of your money with Rocket Money like I do. Now let's get back into today's episode.
And this is before, listen, I know when I got sentenced in the feds, all right, they told me anything before the year, before 2012, that I can't, I'm not I'm not guilty for anything. Whatever happened, right? Isn't that how it works? You know what I'm talking about? When you plead guilty in the feds, you're pleading guilty to any crimes.
Whatever's in the indictment, yeah.
Well, they can't charge you for anything before that. Like if it's a conspiracy or whatever. So I don't give a shit. This was, I was really young anyway. All right, so we had bubble coats back then, right? You know, those big, like, fluffy bubble coats. They had the things tightened on the side. We would go into FYE. And I'm like maybe 10, 11 years old. I'm like small kid, you know, I'm really small. You would never think anything of it. But with the big oversized coat, we go in there, we stuff in hundreds of DVDs, PlayStation games into the coat. And since it's tight on the sides, right, they're not falling out. And this is back in the day when, you know, the style was big clothes, you know? I remember they were Echo jackets, if I'm not mistaken. And literally, we would go in, boom, boom, stuff everything up, and just walk right around the metal detector, and it wouldn't be. We did that for about a month. You know, this is a long time ago. But because there were so many people doing it, I mean, the blood kids were doing it too, right? Malcolm, his boys were doing it. Malcolm's dead, so I'm going to say Malcolm's name, you know? Rest in peace, Malcolm. And I would say hundreds of $1,000s worth of merchandise. Crazy. I'm talking about CDs, DVDs, PlayStation games, you name it. And we were going in and out, in and out. And now there was one time, right next to it was a Sears, and I was with a best friend of mine that I grew up with. His name is Upgrade. Upgrade's he's a musician. He does like hip hop and stuff like that. He's independent. Well, actually, I think he's signed with somebody now, but he does like underground hip hop. So he was my best friend growing up as a kid, and he was with me on one of these things that I was seeing like walkie-talkies or something like that. And the reason why I was in the mall all the time, because my mother was a manager at Filene's, which was in the mall. So whenever she'd go to she had to work, and she was, work full time. She'd just leave us in the mall. We walk around, get in trouble and shit like that. So that's, with the main reason that we were there all the time doing all this at that young age. I don't want people to think that, but my friend, so we got caught, me and my friend. And I knew that this is not what it's his first time. I basically told him, I was like, listen, he had nothing to do with this. Everything was mine, whatever. They kicked me out of the mall for like 2-3 years or something like that, right? So since then, never again have I stole from anybody, anything. I don't steal. I think it's the worst thing that anybody can do. It's like such a low life thing to do. And I'm so against it. And especially because in my life, I've been robbed, so many times by so many close people to me. And I think it's just the worst thing that anybody could do, So I'm happy that happened to me at such a young age, But I was experienced, I was around people, what they say, monkey see, monkey do kind of situation, right? And so after this goes on, whatever, school is no good. Now, I did also try cocaine for the first time in 8th grade also. Yeah, that was like, it wasn't an everyday thing, but 13 was the first time that I tried cocaine as well. So now, 9th grade, I fail. I get sent down to Tampa, Florida. Shout out to Tampa. I moved to a neighborhood called Carver City. Me and my brother David. And it was Jefferson High School I went to, which is a fucking amazing high school. You got some of the best players that's ever came out of there. Fred McGriff. You got, what's his name? Caldwell's, Andre Caldwell, Rashid Caldwell. I went to school with the younger one. And so we moved to a neighborhood there. And now, mind you, I came from this school in New York where everybody's smoking blunts in the bathroom, right? And the demographics were a little different too. In the school that I was in Goshen, New York, and I'm a Russian Jew. I was a minority, right? Most of it was whites, 5% black, another 5% Spanish. Now, when I moved to Tampa, it's the complete opposite. It's 40% Cuban, 40% black, 5% white, 5% maybe Asian or whatever the case may be. So completely different. And so I went into this place thinking that I'm going to be doing the same shit just like in New York. Oh, I found out real quick. This didn't last long. Oh, man. And I should probably apologize to this kid on this podcast right here. You know, there was this kid, Ricky. He gave me some weed to roll up for him. And honestly, that shit was like the most garbage fucking weed I've ever seen in my life. Tampa has some trash weed back in the day. Well, it was the hood, all right? And where I lived was Carver City. Shout out to Carver City, man. I know people are going to see me probably on this. So Carver City was a amazing place to grow up. Definitely shaped who I am as a person today. And I call it my second home, you know? And so Ricky gives me a bag of weed to roll. I go in the bathroom stall and I open the bathroom stall. The fucking principal's right there, like looking at me. And I forgot to flush the guts in the bathroom, right? And I just run, right? As soon as I run, I throw the bag of weed to the left. And I think I took some weed out of the bag. I put it up in a piece of paper and I put it in my underwear for later for myself. But then I threw the blunt in the other thing and then a friend of mine grabbed it. But that was the first time that I got arrested in Tampa. They took me to the Jack Center. They have a place called the Jack Center. When you get arrested in Tampa, it's for juveniles. They bring you there. You sit in a chair. They process you. And if you're going to be going to the juvenile hall, they take a bus from you there. If you're not going, then you get picked up by your parents or whatever the case may be. That time, I didn't go to the juvenile hall. So they let me go. They put me on a probation for it. No big deal. But I want to apologize to Ricky because the next time I saw Ricky, I fucking punched him in his mouth, you know, broke his braces and shit. And then I think he left the school from that. And I, you know, growing up now, I really feel terrible. I was ignorant for it, you know? And I just want to apologize to you, Ricky, if you see this, all right? And so now this is where I also got introduced to this area. This neighborhood was a crack area, all right? So this is when I started selling crack in 2002. $90 an 8-ball. Back then in Florida, completely different than New York. You know, New York people would bag it up in bags and stuff like that. In Florida, it was just like a square, you cut it up with razors and you hold it in your hands and you just stand on a corner type of thing, you know? There was a Texaco by my house. And that's where I would just sit there and at the Texaco, and I had a neighbor of mine that basically, you know, would show me everything how to do it, and that's how that started off. But that's and my brother that's a year and a half older than me ended up actually getting in trouble because of this. So, and I also want to put Dro back then, Hydro, good weed, was not around. I brought good weed to Carver City, right? So everything back then was like mids, you know, with seeds and stuff like that. People go to the projects. It was, you know, projects in Florida is the type of, you go in, one way out. When you went in, you got 20 people running up to your window trying to serve you type of idea, you know? So that's like the culture down there. But now my brother ended up going to a military school. And then something happened, man. You know, something fucked up happened. Now, when I moved with my brother owned a nightclub. He was a DJ. So it was like I moved into a studio, you know, and just with everybody there smoking weed all the time. So it was all right for me to smoke weed. There wasn't a problem. You know, my brother didn't mind. But something happened where I think my brother went for child support. And bro, this is a really fucked up situation. Now, this is what a lot of people don't know about me, all right? A lot of people know that I've been in trouble and everything like that, but the first time that I've ever really been to jail was over a child support dispute from my brother and my mother. My brother filed for child support because my mother wasn't paying child support. My father was. And when my mother sent me there, she did it through a guardianship letter. She didn't do it through the court, so she still had full custody of me. That's what made her able to do this. So in order for me to get into school in Tampa, they required a letter stating that my brother had temporary guardianship, which was notarized. It wasn't done by the court. It wasn't a legal document. So when my brother did this, you know, my mother's not a smart person. She's from Russia. She's not educated. And I can't blame her for this, you know? And I honestly know it was my stepfather, you know? Because he was an American man. And the future things that happened showed me that it was him that really did this to me. So basically, he had my mother lie and said that I ran away in order to duck the child support situation. And they write this report in Orange County, New York, basically saying that I ran away. I have the paperwork in a car. It was like a situation like this. I got sent down there in the school year of 2002. And by 2003, August, she wrote a report saying that I just left New York a year later in the report and ran away to Florida. So they came and locked me up. I went back to that Jack Center, right? But this time they put me on a bus to go to the DFY, Juvenile Hall. And man, this was quite an experience. First place I had grits. I'll tell you that. But what comes to my mind is how inhumane, okay? There were so many kids that there had to be 3 kids in a cell. And the way that the cells were, there was like a bed on each side. It wasn't a bunk, but they were like, you know, those things, and they put the mattress on top of it, almost like the porcelain. It wasn't metal, but it was like an old school, like you got a bed on each side, and then you got a mattress in the middle, right? So you got 3 kids in a cell, and then in the day room, when I got there like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to just pull a mattress up and sleep on the day room. The day room was filled also to full capacity with kids in the day room, just sleeping on a regular jail green mattress and a little thin blanket. And in Florida, at this time, I remember when we woke up the next day, they do showers. They make all the kids get butt naked, right? I think there was probably like 50 or 60 kids in this unit. And you have to stand up against the wall. And they put 5 people in a shower at a time. And they, the CO, one of the COs was a Haitian dude. The other one was a Spanish dude that looked like Marcus Aurelius. What do you call from Gladiator? You know, the guy, Marcus Aurelius, the Gladiator guy? Mm-mm. I don't know if you've ever seen Gladiator, the movie Gladiator.
I've seen like bits and pieces. I know what movie you're talking about.
All right, the main guy, you know, he looked exactly like him. So you got this Haitian dude, right? They're screaming, all this shit. You got 5 minutes to take a shower. And the showers were just the sprinkler heads. But when you're lined up, I remember very vividly, when I was lined up, the first time I got lined up, I seen a few kids' backs from the fire ants. Oh my God, bro. Welts all over their backs, all up and down. Like, I couldn't believe it, you know? I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And it was just disgusting. They had no clean sweaters. If a kid left, they would have to take the sweater from the kid that was leaving, and like you just smell it like it hasn't been cleaned in fucking like 5 years. Like just disgusting shit, you know? So you go in the shower 5 at a time. You come out, you sit on the thing. They give you the deodorant, the baby powder. You know, sit in a row. You put the thing, And, of course, with the kid in these juvenile ones, they don't got commissary. You get just a meal and a breakfast and your lunch, dinner, you get your yard. And wow, this is where I've the first time I actually seen like a CO beat the shit out of somebody was here too. They have a gang in Tampa called the Drac Boys, all right? They were known to be out of the East Tampa projects, if I'm not mistaken, which used to be the Pink Houses, East Tampa. And they ran this juvenile hall, the Drac Boys. And there was this one kid, he was probably 15, 16 years old, but he was a big kid, maybe like 200 pounds. CO, I don't know what happened, but this is the first time I seen a CO literally smashing the kid's fucking mouth, was bleeding everywhere. The way he restrained him and just slamming his face into the ground. I was on the phone at the time talking to my sister too. That, I don't think that ever left my mind because, you got to remember, I'm 14 years old at this time. I'm 14 years old, and believe it or not, just because I smoked weed and everything like that, I was a pretty innocent kid. I grew up in a Russian Jewish home. My mother was, when I did have the experience of having like a really close family. And so I had so this was a very shocking situation, very shocking. But I remember going to court. My brother brought the guardianship letter, shows it to the judge, and the judge just paid it no mind. My brother didn't want to get a lawyer. He wanted to represent me. My brother's he's that type of person, just like a hard-headed, thinks he's so smart. And we went to court 3 times. And every time, he just would not look at that guardianship letter. So they end up keeping me there. I think it was about like a month and a half, 2 months. They end up, and I was waiting, this whole time I'm waiting for the Orange County sheriffs to come and get me, transport me back to New York. I get out of about a month and a half, 2 months. My mother ends up releasing it. Everything gets done. I end up going back to New York very shortly after this. My brother comes out of the military school, and when he came out, the people in the neighborhood kind of almost like, he started doing exactly what I was doing. And it didn't take till later till people realized that we were 2 different people, because we were so close in age and we looked like almost like twins. But my brother ended up getting arrested for a crack sale. So like I dodged that. And then my boy, John, also very short after that, conspiracy to distribute cocaine. Fuck, man. And, good friend of mine also, he had really bad luck, man. He did almost 10 years for that charge, came home, was home for 6 months. Another conspiracy, another 10 years.
Those were federal cases?
State.
Oh, state cases.
Those were state, Florida.
And how old were you? Like a teenager at the time?
At this time, I wasn't even involved in it, but they were just probably, David, 18, I'm probably like 16. Me and my brother like a year and a half apart, something like that. I got my license in Tampa too at 15 years old.
Do you end up leaving Tampa to come back here?
I do. That's the thing. Me and my brother end up separating, right? So after that situation where I got with the juvenile hall situation, I ended up going back to fucking New York. And I had a conversation with my mother, right? She actually came to Florida and she was like, I want you to come back and everything. I was like, all right, I'm going to come back. I had a conversation with her. I was like, listen, can you not ask for child support? I mean, is it like that big of a deal? And, they didn't, I had parents that involved us in the divorce, involved us in everything. And I had a stepmother that would not even want my father to buy us anything just because he paid child support. And she was on her alienation and all that types of stuff and separation. So it was always constant. I was the youngest out of my mother's kids. And I was always involved of the child support, this, that, it ended up being the reason why I ended up getting arrested later down the road. So when I came back, my mother agrees to me. All right, I'm not going to ask for child support, right? I guess like 2 weeks goes by. My father calls me and tells me my mother's calling him for money. I blew the fuck up, right? And at this time, I'm 15 years old. So I end up getting removed from the police. They call the cops. Stepfather calls the cops. Cops remove me. They bring me to the police station. The runaway charges get brought back up. Can't make this up, bro. All right? They tell me I have court coming up 3-4 days. And at this time, I can't stay with my father. My father lives 10 miles away. But because of the situation with his wife and because she was old-fashioned at the time, and whenever I went there, she really did, she made me feel uncomfortable. You know, she would tell me my mother was a whore, my mother didn't want me. Like, and at these times when she was telling me this, I'm a young kid, like, so she was fucking me up in the head, and I didn't feel comfortable there. So when the cops remove me, they bring me to the Greenville State Trooper Barracks, and they cuff me to the thing, and I remember this very clearly. And I'm talking shit. I'm a young kid, right? I'm talking shit. I'm 15 years old. But I was in the streets already, So I'm talking to them pretty ratchet, right? And one of them comes up to me and fucking puts their hands around my neck and chokes me out, bro. I swear to God. This is, back in probably 2000. All right. Remember the Janet Jackson Super Bowl where her titty fell out?
Yeah.
All right. This is around that time because this is when I ended up going to family court a couple days after. I ended up getting institutionalized. So they decided to take me into social services, whatever they call it, custody, right? And my first stop was the State Hospital Psychiatric Center in Orangeburg, New York. Rockland County Children's Psychiatric Center. Holy shit, man.
So what happens after that? How long are you in there for?
All right. When I got in there, I was fucking pissed. Now, how this happened, I went to court, and my mother goes on the stand and starts lying and saying that I was threatening to kill her.
Did you?
No. At this point, absolutely not. She was saying that I was threatening to kill her, and I was threatening to kill her husband. All types of lies. And because I knew she was lying, the emotions in me, and also because of what happened just a few months before this, I got incarcerated, down there. I picked up a pen off the table. I stood up and I looked at the judge and I says, if she doesn't stop lying, Your Honor, I'm going to put this pen in my throat.
In your throat or her throat?
In my throat.
So that's what got you institutionalized?
Into the psychiatric center. They had plans to put me in a group home, but that got me first step right there to a psychiatric center.
Okay.
Now, why this is so terrible? Because I end up getting misdiagnosed, right? Because of the fact that, my mother couldn't take accountability for the neglect and abuse and everything that I was going through my childhood. The psychiatrist got a story from her that protected her image. So they ended up putting me on medications that I shouldn't have been on. And the first 3 days I got in there, I was bucking. I'm bugging out. As soon as I got in there, alarms, because I'm going crazy. So the alarms go off, they hit the alarms, everybody comes, they restrain me, needle, boom, right in the butt. Thorazine, I think they called it, right? Now this became a problem, and I'm gonna tell you why. Every single time I woke up, I was in shock that I was there, and I would spaz the fuck out, and it kept happening. I'm gonna take an estimate, maybe 3 days, maybe 3 to 5 days, until somebody came up to me, this kid that was also in there, and told me, listen, you can't keep doing this, bro, if you want to get out of here, Now I'm starting to get schooled, right? The kid tells me, just do whatever they say, and that's what's going to get you out of here. He's like, and he gave me a cookie, you know? I remember that. And so that's when I started to learn. I'm like, okay, I gotta do what I gotta do. So they put me on Zoloft. They put me on a drug called Risperdal. And they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. They diagnosed me with, I forgot what else, something else, some type of I don't know what the antipsychotic was for, but I learned in the future that they definitely were false diagnoses, you know? And because I had marijuana in my system, when I got out of this place, I ended up going to like a rehab and stuff like that. But so for the next month and a half, I'm in this place and I'm seeing how everything's going. It's a fucked up situation, those psychiatric centers with kids, because they're designed to like make these kids not leave in a way, you know? And most of them are coming from broken homes. You know, most of these kids that are in these places, believe it or not, it's the fucking parents that should be in fucking jail. You know what I'm saying? Because without neglect, without trauma, without abuse, most likely these things are, I know from my situation, you know, we had a very close family growing up. And since I was the youngest, right, I had a brother that was a year and a half older than me that fucking put his hands on me every single day of my life, you know? And I know how that affected me. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't really learn how much it affected me until the future, until I actually started healing. But that's supposed to be brought up like, hey, listen, you know, keeping those secrets only make things worse, right? So that's what I've learned, that most of my issue I've learned now that I've had complex trauma since a child. I know I used to go to the doctors when I was a baby for night terrors and stuff like that. I remember like I used to have these nightmares that would make me cry in my sleep. And I still to this day, you know, my girlfriends would tell me that when I'm sleeping, I'd be screaming in my sleep and crying in my sleep and stuff like that. And that's from trauma. And trauma is in my family so deeply because of everything that my father was grown up in a Muslim orphanage in the 1950s and 60s in the Soviet Union. Can you imagine that? You know? And, you know, my mother too, you know, they didn't have, you know, their toilets were holes in the ground and they shared a toilet with a community of 50 people and stuff like that. So they're, and it's hard because when you're coming from that culture, part of the culture is they don't believe in psychology. They don't believe in healing. They don't believe in talking about your problems and healing the right way. So that's like a recipe for disaster, you know? Especially in a place where, you know, in America and you make money and your family would never be together and healthy without any type of emotional regulation or literacy, you know? That didn't happen. That was the main issue with my family. None of us had emotional regulation, literacy. None of us knew what boundaries were. You know what I'm saying? And those are really important things to learn growing up.
So do you end up going back to live with them after?
I don't. Okay, so I get out of the psychiatric center and I go to group home. Group home, and this is a non-secure detention. I'm there for about 3 months. Then they send me to a place up in up by Kingston, Woodstock, Kingston, up in that area called Never Alone. It's a 90-day rehab. And at that time, I was 15 years old. And in that 90-day rehab, they were going to make the decision where I was going to be going next. And from there, everybody was there for weed, first of all. All right? I can't tell you how much cannabis is not a drug. Okay? A drug is something that stops you from feeling. All right? Cannabis doesn't stop you from feeling. You know? In fact, I think it actually gets you more in tune with your feelings and helps you even explore them. I mean, cannabis is a tool of tools. I mean, especially in prison. Oh my God. that's when I learned I was able to smoke weed and work out and use it as like a motivation to be able to work out in prison, you know? Before that, I was like, I didn't know you could smoke weed, throw the headphones on and go hit the pull-up bar, and it's the most motivating thing in the world, you know? And it's not for everybody though. Let's put that up front, right? It's definitely not for everybody. But we do know that it heals trauma. And for so many years, the government has been traumatizing, right? Monetizing and taking away the cure or the treatment. You know what I'm saying? And punishing you for treating yourself, you know? And so I ended up talking my way out of this 90-day program and telling them I'm going back to Florida, right? Because now I didn't trust my parents to stay where no way. There's no two ways in hell that I was going back there. I went back to Tampa. I told him I was gonna go to the same military school as my brother. Shit. And at this time, I think this is when I started probably using cocaine more, you know? So when I got down to Tampa, my brother and my buddy John, bad influences, you know, he's sniffing blow with girls in a hotel room for the weekend, and I had to take a drug test to get into this fucking military school in Gainesville, you know? And deep down, I really didn't want to go anyway, you know what I'm saying? I was like, fuck that, you know? So anyway, I end up taking the trip, and I failed the fucking drug test. My sister's the one that took me to the thing. We drove 3 hours. I go back to Tampa, and they're like, listen, you're not staying here, you know? Because I'm not going to front. I was a wild boy. You know what I mean? I was a wild boy. I was in the streets, bro, you know? As a young kid, I was really kind of in the streets. And they knew I couldn't stay there. I also started experiencing with ecstasy also. I think in the year 2000, the first time I ever took a ecstasy pill. So during this time when I was in Tampa, I was hanging out with like stick-up kids. And I was taking these crazy green sunshine e-pills that were down there that were just fucking the size of Altoids and shit. And I'm like 14 years old, 15 years old. And, the people that I was hanging out with it probably wasn't the best that I was staying down there. So I ended up going back, and I ended up going into like a homeless like kind of situation. Now I'm moving in with like friends that I grew up with. And my pops did look out. He got me a little Cadillac DeVille, right? For $5,000. And that's when I started, like, that's when the hustling started, you know? Like, the real coming back to New York is when we really got in. Once I got the car and everything like that. And met some really good people along the way. And
what are you hustling?
Weed. At this time, mostly weed. The blow was there also, but I'm just getting at this time schooled on the blow. My boy Diego is a fucking legend, all right? Diego came from Colombia. He was a gorilla from Colombia. Got deported like 3 times from America, just kept coming back. And Diego was also one of the people I think that first tried cocaine when I was like 12 years old with too, But so I would hang out with Diego every day, and then I would also hang out we weren't segregated. Growing up in Orange County, New York, and upstate New York, it wasn't segregated. I was hanging out with all types of people. I had Bloods that were my friends. I had Colombians that were my friends. You know what I'm saying? I got Irish people that were my friends, there was no discrimination. It was just really just like who you were as a person. And, so at this time, grams were, I'm sure, probably around $30 a gram. But what Diego would do is he would give me half grams for $30, right? And we would sell them for $50. So let's say I knew somebody that wanted a couple of 50s or whatever. He'd basically sell me the gram for $60, and then I end up selling the gram for $100, make it $40, right? So this was like 15, 16 years old. But at the time, the main hustle was weed, right? And then my first charge coming back from New York, I ended up getting arrested. I got caught with 8 pounds of weed coming back from Staten Island when I was 16 years old. And so that's when it got me right back into the justice system, you know? And so it's like, you know, in and out road. But it was a lot of experience. This was 2005. So this was also a legendary time, right? You know, this was like shit. Young Jeezy, Thug Motivation, 101 days. This is when Big Meech was still out doing his things right before he got arrested. You know what I'm saying? Pill popping was at the highest ever. Fucking everybody's popping ecstasy and taking Molly, and you know, nobody's dying off of fentanyl and shit like that. And but quickly I progressed into selling other things. So from the weed, I remember there was this one customer that even till this day, I really believe he was maybe even like a CIA agent. I swear to God. And the reason what makes me think this, okay, I got introduced to him by somebody, and it was always a really weird, strange situation. For weed, right? And this is at the time when I guess like Percocets and Vicodin and oxycodone is just like, I guess, starting to get popular, but I still never heard of it. So I would meet this guy and I would give him like $50 worth of weed. And he'd give me a whole fucking jar filled with Oxycontin and Vicodin and shit like that. And once I realized, okay, I'm giving this guy $50 worth of weed and he's giving me like $600-700 worth of pills. Does he know that? Like, because once people are telling me what it is and stuff like that, you know? So, which I really regret, the opiate hustle is, if anything I regret in life, because I really don't have much regrets, right? I regret, for sure, ever being involved with any type of opiates. And the karma that came onto my life from selling these types of drugs lasted a very long time, you know? And I know that's what it is. You know, it's because when you're selling a drug like that, you're killing somebody, right? You're making somebody sick. You're preying on their vulnerability. And it's a terrible thing to do, right? And I also want to say that, you know, as a kid with no supervision, I was very influenced by, of course, hip-hop music, right? When I'm in these psychiatric centers, I'm listening to DJ Vlad, fucking Tupac, Rock Phenomenon, and, you know, Tupac and Memphis Bleak, and, you know, so as a kid, whenever, you know, I didn't have my parents around, that's where, you know, Wu-Tang Clan and stuff like that. So, I mean, this is already known what hip-hop music does, but, you know, when I look back at it, how much it influenced my life and influenced the life that I thought that was the right life to go to be cool and everything like that. It's very, it could take over your brain, man. Especially if you don't got a role model. If you're a kid looking for a role model and you don't got one, right? And you're desperate for one, that's what you're gonna idolize. You're gonna idolize like the music. You're gonna idolize TV and shit like that. And, you know, I know I'm not the only one that's happened to, you know what I mean? Of course, living in New York with the music, the culture, you know, at this time, Jay-Z, Nas, and all this, you know, but not having any parental structure to guide me. And, you know, I think that was really really got me really caught up into thinking that this is real life, right? And this is how I have to live, because that's exactly what I did. And so at 16, after I got caught with these 8 pounds of weed, I started getting my first experience with psychosis. You know, psychosis is a big part of my story, Ian, unfortunately. And I didn't realize it until very recently, but cocaine and trauma are enemies. You give cocaine to somebody that's traumatized, it's not going to be good. Because trauma, people already have problems dealing with fight or flight. And majority of the time, it's easy for somebody to get into flight mode, right? So you do a bump of cocaine and you have complex trauma, you're automatically just going to be anxious. You're going to be worried. You're not going to be able to enjoy yourself, you know? And I can't tell you the shit that I put myself with psychosis, you know? And, you know, this is important to say too, because not even a lot of people even know what this term is. I mean, shit, I'm not the first one that started hallucinating off of cocaine, you know? That's just been happening since back in the 80s, since people have been smoking crack and shit like that, you know? So, but the term is called psychosis, all right? And it's, you know, drug-induced psychosis, and it could be potentially very detrimental. It could hurt somebody, you could hurt yourself. And yeah, that's part of the, you know, since 2022, I haven't touched cocaine since, and I'm scared to death of it, and I know I'm allergic to it. You know what I'm saying? So, but going back to 16 now, I'm not in school. I'm on probation. Okay, I'm back on probation, and because of the juvenile history, they put me on intensive supervision probation. And I got charged with a D felony, which is criminal possession of marijuana, right? D felony, which was punishable up to, I think it was like 2.5 to 7 years in state prison. I copped out to a YO, youthful defender. They gave me 5 years in intensive supervision. And I was also with a best friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name, right? But his brother was also my best friend. His mother... these people were so influential into my life. His mother and his brother both passed away. And they were Irish from Brooklyn, you know, old school Irish from Brooklyn. And wow, just amazing people. So he ended up, and he was a few years older than me, of course. You know, I always hung out with the older people, I guess because you know what I was doing. So he was about 4 years older than me. But we were like, you know, best friends, brothers. We were together every day. So he ended up getting a county year. He took a county year in jail. I ended up doing the 5 years intensive supervision, and I'm home for a couple months. So, you know, at this time I wasn't like doing cocaine every day, but now since probation, you know, I can't have marijuana in my system because it's in my system for 30 days. Let me try to do something that's going to be out of my system quicker. I mean, and it's like, that's what probation knows what they're doing, you know? They used weed in a way as a gateway to get people to use other drugs. And that's the way I feel about the probation system before marijuana was legal. And even till this day, which we're going to get to in a little bit, they're still trying to use marijuana to, again, and I'll get to it in a minute. But, so my probably first month on probation, I ended up going to my buddy Eric, who passed away, rest in peace. We're getting high, right, on an 8-ball, and we're watching The Sopranos. And they had a Christmas tree in their fucking room, and I'm starting to like see somebody behind the Christmas tree. I'm getting high, I'm getting paranoid, you know, and I'm thinking somebody's behind the Christmas tree, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And this is recently, I just got out of the, you know, keep in mind, I just got out of the psychiatric center, so I have all these different medications, right, that they gave me, all these antipsychotics and stuff. So I'm getting high. His mom is telling me, Danny, stop, you know, you're fine, you know, it's just the drugs, whatever the case may be. And I used to sleep over here a lot, you know, they gave me a nice, you know, I didn't have a place to sleep, and they really treated me like family, you know, so I was there all the time. So we go to bed. My best friend's in jail at this time. I'm with his twin brother, right? And I'm so paranoid, dude. I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing fucking ghosts dancing around my car and shit like that. I go run downstairs, I grab a kitchen knife, and I come back. I'm like running around the house. I'm bugging out. They're all sleeping, okay? I end up taking these pills. Zyprexa. They these fucking psychiatrists back then, they put me on so much medication that I was not supposed to be on. And I just took a bunch of these pills. I go into the car with the knife, and I end up, I pass the car, and next to my friend's house is like a pond. I end up chasing these ghosts into like a river. All my clothes are soaked. I get in the car, right? I back out. This is 2006. I just got rid of the Cadillac. I'll tell you about that situation in a second too. I just got rid of the Cadillac. I just got an Impala, and I leave my friend's house, and I'm bugging out. I start driving up the road. I park at a gas station, and I start feeling the pills. I fall asleep at the gas pump. This is right in the fucking hometown of where they knew me, where I grew up, and they like always harassed me. And I get a knock on the window. The cops wake me up, and I'm completely out of it. I don't even know what the fuck is going on. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, they're like, "Are you waiting for somebody?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm waiting for my family." I remember. And they're like, "What is your face bleeding for?" I'm like, "Oh shit, I got a bloody nose." And there was a Jiffy Lube receipt. I grabbed it and I just wiped my face. And they seen I was fucked up, right? And it just so happens my mother works at the diner right on top of the hill. And I haven't seen my mother, it's been a while. She comes down. They were going to lock me up. And, working at a diner, my mother serves the police and shit like that all the time. They were going to let me go. And I turned around and I said to them, "So do I have to get another car for you motherfuckers to stop harassing me again?" They locked me up. DUI. Violation of probation. And then so they sent me to jail for a few days. Then they started experiencing me with all these different programs. They programmed me to death. For the next 4 years, I'm in and out programs. I'm still hustling. And at this time, I got more into selling less marijuana, heroin, cocaine, crack. And this is a terrible thing. The first time that I don't even want to think of it. It sucks. I got pulled over by the police one time. I was with these two girls, Carly and Denise, all right? I was in the back seat. I had a bundle of heroin on me. This is when I first just starting to sell heroin, because I was already selling the pills. And I met a Dominican kid that I used to hang out with. He put me on. He's like, "Here, take this. Start selling this," like this, right? So I'm selling the heroin. I get pulled over. I have the dope in my underwear. And when they pulled me over, I had a knife on my lap, I had money on my lap, and I had the Vicodins on my lap. They came up so quick, and they were like, "Oh, he's got something." I grabbed it, I got out of the car, I threw the pills, right? Only thing I was worried about is that heroin, because at that time, I know dope is bad. I don't know what a bundle is or whatever the case may be. They found one of the Vicodins. They charged me for tampering with evidence and the controlled substance for the Vicodin. I end up eating the heroin. I'm fucking 16 or 17 at this time. Damn, bro. Thank God I didn't die, right? When I got into that jail, damn, I'm starting to I threw up the bags and I saw that they opened. My friend's mom my father bailed me out. It was like a $500 bail, but he didn't come pick me up. My friend's mom that I was staying with came and picked me up. It was summertime, as soon as I walked out down them steps, Orange County Jail, the sun hit me, I collapsed. And I started throwing up tan globs. For the next 3 days, I had to be in front of an air conditioner, and I had to keep 2 gallons of water next to me and just keep drinking and just throwing up. So I couldn't hold anything down for 3 days, bro. Ooh, it was such a, really bad situation, you know? It was scary, you know? And that just shows you what type of person I was at 15, 16 year old, you know, how, you know, was pretty ballsy, you know what I'm saying? So that's when that started going on around that time. I end up, make a long story short, getting programmed out. What that means is I'm in and out of programs. I tried to move out of state, right? I did. I moved out of state with my son's mother. I have a kid. I buy a house in Pennsylvania. They told me I had permission to buy the house. After I closed on the house, they told me Pennsylvania didn't accept my case. I had to move back to Middletown, get an apartment. And I was like, you know what? And at this time, I gotta watch what I say, all right? Because I'm on probation right now, all right? And I'm in the same probation department. And it just so happens that my probation officer from back when I was 16 years old is my supervisor for my case right now. Shout out to Miss Anderson. So after being programmed out, I'm like, you know what? Fuck probation. I'm running. So that's exactly what I did. I'm like, you know what? My son is like 2-3 years old at this time. And back then, probation just was, they really hold you back. So I took my son and my family to Florida. I left for about a month and a half. They came, right before I left to Florida, they came to my apartment. This piece of shit. Because in the future, he really, before he retired, his name is Captain, he was a sheriff, shit. We're going to get to his name. He's a bald-headed piece of shit once it comes to my head. But he came to my house and they had a knock warrant. Didn't have a body warrant, so they couldn't kick in the door. So I just laid in there, waited for them to go away. And then I got on a flight to Tampa, Florida as soon as I could. My baby mom met me down there. I got to spend some time with my son and my family. I came back, got into one episode where the police almost got me. I ended up running from them. And they took like my son's mother like hostage and another person that I was with. And so I ended up negotiating for me to turn myself in. I turned myself in 2009. I get 1 count a year in the county jail, in Orange County Jail. And that's where Russia was born. Because of my last name. My last name is a Russian last name, right? And in jail, you know, naturally people call you by, you know, they last name or whatever, you know. So that's where Russia was born. And that's when, wow, what an experience that was. And because that's when I got to see what the real jailing was about. Working, right? I became a trustee right away. Kitchen, eventually to the warehouse. And I learned early, every jail, if you want to run the jail, you get to the warehouse. All right? So that's where I got. I lived really well. Fucking half-pound cheeseburgers for breakfast, 10-egg omelets, like you name it, you know? And that's also where I got into my first fight, was in that kitchen. Definitely. I fucking had I hit a kid with a 6-inch pan and ended up fucking cutting my own fucking head, you know? And that lasted, it was an 8-month bid, but Russia was born there. So that bid was important because during that time, a lot of things happened. My son's mother, there was a kid that was in there, right, from the neighborhood. My son's mother ends up somehow, I guess when he was getting released, meeting with him, right? And when I get home, she tells me what happened. And then when I came home also, my son's mother had a heroin habit. And things got difficult. But it made me want to leave, like, the street life, right? So I ended up breaking up with her, and I have a plan to go to Salt Lake City, Utah. I got a job out there for furniture, selling furniture. And a few days before, my son's mother gets arrested for a home invasion down in South Carolina. And she was supposed to watch my son. You know, she knew the plan. She went down there with 3 kids from New York tied these Chinese people up down in Spartanburg, you know, kidnapping, burglary, home invasion, everything, you know, and she was facing a long time. And this is where the Fed stuff came in. So as soon as I got out of jail, there was a federal investigation, basically.
Into you.
Not into me, into a group of people, right, that my son's mother was associated with that ended up introducing me to. But I didn't know all these people. I knew one, maybe two people out of 35, right? And I end up doing that job. Everything's wonderful, right? I'm living in Salt Lake City. I get a fucking call by the FBI, 6 o'clock in the morning. And they tell me, hey, Russia. And you know, I ain't heard this name in a long time. Really took me by surprise. And he's like, Agent so-and-so with the FBI, da-da-da-da-da. You got to turn yourself into the nearest federal whatever. I told him, it's my uncle's birthday. I'm going to Vegas for the weekend. I'll turn myself in on Monday. Now, this story has to be said because, you know, the media, okay? Fuck you, media. Whoever wrote the article for my shit completely lied and made me look like some type of fucking... And this, you know, this is I'm telling the God's honest truth here, all right? One, I had no plans of turning myself in, all right? They were definitely going to have to send them wolves after me just like they told me they were. And the way I did it, I had a good friend of mine, rest in peace, that was working me on the sale. His name was Randy, old man Randy, right? I told him what happened. He took me to a bus station in Wendover, Nevada. He didn't want to take me to Salt Lake. He's like, hey, let me take you over here. And my goal was to just see my son before I turned myself in. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to New York. I wanted to see my child, right? And then I would turn myself in, just like I did last time. Now, let me tell you, before I went to the bus station, I've never done methamphetamines before, okay? This was the one and only time somebody injected me with methamphetamines. This is after I got the news from the FBI. I just remember sitting on a couch and being able to, like where we are, and the wall's there, the door, the peephole, and being able to see through the peephole from sitting like on the couch. Like, so then from there, that's when I started to run. Go to the bus station, get on the bus. I got just a fucking big 50-pound, construction garbage bag of my shit. And I start taking a bus to back to New York. And then when I get to Omaha, Nebraska, I saw the agent, before we were even pulling out, I knew they were there. I saw the Tahoes, I seen everything. And at this time, believe it or not, I'm still like fucking tweaked, bro. Like, and this was already like, I think a day, you know? Because we already went to Salt Lake, then we stopped in, I remember Colorado, but once we got to Nebraska, I ended up they chased me. I got away from them. I called my brother, and I told my brother what was going on. He had to come. I told him, like, listen, you got to come pick me up. He comes and picks me up with my friend, Danny, a girl, Lauren, and on the way home, we get pulled over in Illinois. This is how I know that whoever wrote this fucking article said I was renting cars under false alias names and bullshit to make me look like that. I'm not a fucking scammer. You know what I'm saying? I don't have multiple IDs and fucking like, you know what I'm saying? They tried to make it look like I'm some type of crazy, you know? But that's how it happened. They pulled me over in Illinois, and because I had an FBI warrant, they didn't arrest me. They let me go. That's how you know when FBI has you under investigation. If you get pulled over by the regular police, they're not going to do anything to you. I thought I was done.
How long were you on the run for at that point?
I think about maybe 5-6 days, you know, and they knew where I was coming from. They knew where I was. They raided my brother's house. My older brother gave me up so easily. He's in Salt Lake City, a little fucking bitch, bro, you know? And my older brother, they found his weed, right? They couldn't do nothing to him because they didn't have a search warrant, but they were trying to make him flush. He had a few pounds there or something like that. And yeah, they gave me up real fucking fast, you know? But when I got back to town, I started getting a lot of people upset because I was making it really, really hot. So at this point, you know, I have PTSD really badly since a child, right? So at this point, I'm in fight or flight mode because I know I'm going away for a long time. And when I got back, my whole family was surrounded by the FBI. They were following him everywhere. I cannot get to my son, nothing. So now when I get back, after that shot of methamphetamine, that's it. Now I'm on the run mode. And it was just like life doesn't matter anymore, you know? So I end up going into a friend's buddy of mine's father's trailer. He was in prison at the time. And I was with a girlfriend. And somebody left my brother's house and got arrested for a warrant. And, I don't know this as a fact, but I know he's the only one that knew where I was, right? And I know because he's a bitch-ass motherfucker, you know, he cares about his friends more than his family. He told them where I was, and because they got a tip. And, yeah, they came, kicked in the door, you know, beat the shit out of me. And, you know, it's crazy because the night before was the first time I actually overdosed the night before. The night before I overdosed right in the fucking kitchen. You know, I was in a really bad place. I was scared to death, you know? At that time, I would say I was 20-something, 22, 23 years old. And the way my life already had went, you know, I did not want to go back to jail, you know? So I remember before they came in, I'm in the bathroom. I hear the door get kicked in. The guy had a dog. It was a trailer. So, you know, at the end of the trailer is the master bedroom. The dog was in the trailer. They were in that room with the door closed. They came into the bathroom and I was laying down on the tub. They didn't even see me. And they were about to shoot the dog. They were like, oh, we're going to shoot the dog. And I just surrendered myself. And I popped like 10 Valiums, right? And they basically fucked me up. They were really upset, you know? Brought me to the FBI station. And I'm so zooted at this time. And they know it. And they're like showing me pictures of people. I'm like, and mind you, and the people on the case know, like, you know, because I got to meet most of these people in jail because I had to be in there with them. And most of them were wonderful people, you know? But I wasn't supposed to be there, you know? And they're showing me these pictures. I'm like, I don't know these fucking people. Like, you know? They ended up taking me back to Valhalla, right? And I woke up like 2-3 days later. I was fucked up. I remember in the new jail. And let me tell you something. Valhalla jail, turned up.
Yeah, isn't that's a federal holding center, right?
They do. They have a federal holding center, but then they also have their county jail. So they do. They have in the Fed when I was there, the pen, they had a Fed block, and then they also had a couple of units where they have federal inmates. But I'm talking about how the jail was ran, dude. There was more. And I think also when I was there was a pretty iconic time, I would say. I was with the Elm Street Gang, Slow Bond Gang. They were in a war at the time. Big Puerto Rican indictment. There was big, you know, good people there. You have to remember, in federal prison, these are just not criminals. These are geniuses. You understand? But only thing is, that I noticed that we all had in common, we all got too greedy. You know? When it comes down to it, the greed is where everything gets fucked up in a way. Greed makes you lose thought of being safe. Like, you know, instead of saying, hey, I'm okay taking this amount of money, trying to take every single thing that you can get, right? Instead of being grateful, and then you're messing with people that, you know, you don't even know, shit like that. That's the type of greed. And it's not even with a drug situation. I had a best friend of mine that was in federal prison. My biggest, I would say, inspiration and mentor was a doctor, a Russian doctor named Boris Sachikov. And he had a Medicaid fraud, right? 30 million or something like that. And he took it to trial. They were trying to offer him like 30, 40 years. Got 30 months, you know? That's basically beating it, you know what I mean? But he told me, he was like, you know what? I could have been fine. I would have never got caught if I was just doing here, a few million here, a few million there.
Wait, so why did you get arrested? Why were they hunting you?
Conspiracy to distribute cocaine, heroin, marijuana.
So what were you caught on a wire or something with your wife's or baby mama's associates?
So check this out. The main dude of this case, piece of shit, his name is Robert Givens. His name is fucking Doughboy, all right? He was a kid that had a phone. People need, like, it was just a phone, a trap phone, right? He ends up going to the Bronx, coming back, getting arrested with, like, a lot of dope. They turned him right there into an informant. So what they did was they started tapping people. I mean, what got my warrant to be into there was they called me for a gun. Mm. Okay? They called me for a gun. I didn't. It was a funny situation too, because I didn't even answer. Like, once he was like, oh, do you have I remember vividly. Hey, you got that? Still got that 357? And I was just like, what? And then I hung up. But during the course, later, you know, I did end up selling a different gun to somebody else. And I didn't even know him. Like, it was a situation where, like, oh, go meet this guy over here. It was just the person that I knew, right? Go give it to this person over here, da-da-da-da-da. So I didn't even know the person I was giving it to, you know? And I ended up getting a 2-point enhancement for that, you know?
So how much time did they end up giving you in total?
I'm gonna get to there in 2 seconds. All right, this is really important. This federal, because I wanted to. This is the Southern District of New York. This is the same district as Diddy. All right, and I want you to try to to understand. My case was probably the worst case, and what I mean by the worst case, there was no evidence. The only thing they had was phone taps. And a conspiracy to sell kilos of all this and that, they had no drugs, bro. When they did their raids, they didn't find anybody with drugs, barely any money, 1 or 2 guns. You understand? And what they did was, because it's such a small town, they took people that were getting money in the town, that, let's say, that they couldn't get, right, individually, and made this indictment and was just like, all you guys are bloods. All you guys are working out of this place called a sneaker store and a studio, which I've never heard of and never seen them in my life. And that's how I knew. I'm like, you know what? When I woke up and I read this indictment, I'm like, sneaker store, studio, because I was supposedly being alleged to be working out of these places. Never heard of them in my life. And that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, just because I gave somebody a gun doesn't mean that I'm in conspiracy to be in their mafia, into their organization. You understand? There was so many other people that were just like me, that would call up, just get drugs, right? To conspire means that you have to actually agree, sit down, and organize to work together. That wasn't this type of situation. Most of the people that was on there were just like, don't even know the person. They got this phone number. Hey, you call this, this number, whatever the case may be. But I mean, I knew the one guy who turned informant, right? And he brought down his whole gang. His whole fucking gang, dude. And when I got in there, I seen the situation. Holy shit, man. What a, you know, some people, there was one kid that didn't even sell drugs that was on there. It was just a pizza delivery guy. And one of the head guys on the case, I guess, didn't trust the guy that was calling the phone and gave him fake crack. He was like, hey, yo, go meet this person for me. He didn't even sell drugs. And the guy goes and does it, and it's a fucking undercover fed. They had the video of him doing it and everything. He didn't take it because it was fake, but he still got charged. And he ended up getting charged as blood also. And, you know, I didn't get charged as a blood, but this is how it worked. With my case, they started throwing out offers because of, this was a fucked up case. And the way that it was going on, they were fighting each other inside, you know, and what's really important that you should know about federal holding centers, there's agents on that block. Multiple. You hear what I'm telling you? In jumpsuits. Okay? I'm the type of person I am, I'm a very over empathic in a way. I'm very able to feel things. And I'm very able to notice things. And I'll give you an example, right? Out of respect, don't you think that if people are talking about their case, that maybe you should walk out the room? Like if you didn't know them, right? I mean, if I'm sitting here with a friend of mine and we in jail and it's a 12-person pod that we used to, and we start talking about things, and you know that how conspiracy works, like if you know something, maybe you could be brought up in it, right? Like, wouldn't you not want to hear those things? But you would see certain people would be sitting and listening and watching and taking everything in. So, you know, trust me, they're in there, they're watching, and it's crazy, man. They're in jumpsuits. They'll have probably like 4 or 5 in there. And they'll look like the most trustful, like I'll say one of them, there was this guy, OT. His name was OT. With a pod, the way they put most of us on our case in the same block. You know, I guess the ones that were snitching or whatever, they took them off, put them in different jails and shit like that, right? But majority of my case, we were all on the same block, right? So I got to know these people. But there was this one guy in our pod. He's in the corner, OT, he's been there forever, never seen him go to court, never seen anything. And we were there for almost 12 months. But you know what I did see? That motherfucker was in there, everybody's business, trying to give advice, right? And those are the people that are going to be showing up against you in trial if you go to trial. You understand? There was also another Latin King indictment while I was there. And there was a kid that was offered 15 to life. And he was getting charged with murder, capital murder. And the only thing he was just a weed dealer. He went to trial. He beat it. Only thing they got charged with was the marijuana that he was selling. But they were trying to give him, they offered him 15 years. You know? The way that, and these are things that they know. The prosecutors know. They know all these things. They just have no, they lose their soul in corruption. Corruption is, I would say to a lawyer, if you're going into law to do the right thing, right? Don't ever become a prosecutor, because that's when you're going to end up being corrupted. And that's when you're going to turn into a bad lawyer. You know, I have these lawyers, oh, I used to be a DA. Oh, you've been corrupted. You know what I'm saying? Because they do some foul shit. And so now there's a few things that I really want to point out with the feds, because I've never seen anybody talk about transportation with you. And I got to tell you my experience with transportation. So I was the first person to cop out in my case, all right? They were offering me, they ended up, there's B1A, B1B, B1C, okay? They started throwing out offers, B1A, B1Bs, and B1Cs. They gave all the people that were gang members B1Bs, and then majority of the people that weren't gang members, I believe they offered B1Cs. They offered me 57 to 72 months because of they go by the chart. and plus the enhancement. So your past criminal record is what determines. A B1C is 0 to 20 years. So it could be anywhere to 0 to 20 years, but you have your recommendation of your sentencing for your guidelines. So my sentence recommendation was around 52 to 72 months. And when I went to court, my PSI is what I would say had the judge have some compassion for me because of the fact that I was homeless as a young kid, because I did have, addiction treatment facilities. Like it was proven that I had addiction problems and stuff like that. So those are the things that help. But I think really mainly was the way I was raised and all that stuff, because that's been very detailed in a PSI. So I get sentenced. Now I go to Brooklyn.
How much time did you end up getting?
I end up getting 36 months.
Okay, 3 years.
36 months. I get sentenced. Oh, man. Let me tell you something, bro. I go to Brooklyn. They put me on a fucking 8th floor. I don't know if you know about Brooklyn or what. 8th floor is the zoo. They put me on like the worst floor ever. Now, when I get into the jail, I first get in there on the block, right? Of course, I got my celly. This is going to be a iconic celly introduction. I get on the block. Somebody knows me from Valhalla that was there, this kid Red, right? Puerto Rican Red kid. So I'm going into my cell, and there's a kid that runs into my cell, pulls a fucking shank on me, right? And these shanks were made, you know the fans, the big commercial fans, right? Mm-hmm. In Brooklyn, they had a lot of those, like the cage. They would rip the cage and make them into bars and then shank them up, and you get like a fucking 14-inch, with the wrapped around, you know what I'm saying? So he pulled the shank on me. On my first day, I'm like, he's like, where's your paperwork? I'm like, it's mailed here. It's coming here. I just got here. It's going to take a couple days to come in. Red comes. Red's like, I vouch for him. He's good, da-da-da, whatever the case may be, right? And this is how psychology is. Pay attention. This kid was from Connecticut, right? He's still fighting his case. Fuck is he doing in Brooklyn by himself without all of his indictment, right? Eventually, I'm like, what's going on here? Why are you holding a knife like that? What are you scared for, right? That's what I'm thinking in my head. So now I'm also in Brooklyn when Sandy happened. The hurricane. Remember that shit when the whole Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, everything? Mm-hmm. Dude, we lost power for I had to smell my celly shit for 3 days. The toilets didn't work. We were locked in the cells. Crazy. So this kid gets in a fight with somebody on the block. He left the fucking gun in the cell somewhere. I end up finding out that he is a rat from his case. He was an island boy. There's a gang in New Haven, Connecticut called the Island Boys. I don't know if you're familiar. Is New Haven an island?
No.
Where's the island?
There's no island.
No, there's a hood on the water.
Oh, like Bridgeport area, maybe.
I know he was. It's on the water, and it's like one of the
New Haven is on the water.
I think it's one of the ghetto areas of Connecticut. But I know it's a gang called Island Boy. He showed me his tattoo. Right, I have an Island Boy tattoo. So and then once that word they told me, everything made sense. My paperwork came, everything was good. I ended up getting a new celly, Gambino guy, right? Fucking amazing guy, one of the funniest people I've ever met. I think he was an associate, maybe, I don't know. But they fucking all were ransacking my fucking cell for that shank. And at 36 months, I don't want that shank anyway, So I found somebody to be able to sell it to. I was like, hey, take it. I don't want it. Boom. Got rid of it. Got rid of that liability, And so my celly, he comes in. He's like, hey, listen, I need the bottom bunk. I got a bottom bunk pass. He's got the sleep apnea machine,
Oh, that's
And I'm like, don't worry, man. I'm not going to give you a hard time. You got the bottom bunk. It's not a problem. I get on the top bunk. Me and this guy end up becoming really good friends and talking and stuff. What a hilarious guy. He was electrician at the Post in Queens over there. That's what he did as a job, But But he was a good guy, and he told me that the spot that I was going to, finally, when I found out the spot that I was going to, he told me, he was like, it's the land of milk and honey, kid, you know? I'm getting so excited, all right? Because at this time, there's a war on the block between the Spanish and the blacks. Also got Albanians, crazy fucking Albanians that are like fucking 6'7", 300 pounds, all going crazy, screaming. The atmosphere in this Brooklyn, you have to wear your boots to the shower. Let's just put it that way. And so I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there, right? Number one. And so I'm all psyched up for this land of milk and honey. Dude, as soon as I get the school kill. All right, let's talk about the transportation, because this is important. This is wintertime. When they transport you in the feds, you wear a scrub. It's like a hospital kind of scrub. No underwear, no t-shirt. You're butt naked. When I got transferred, it was just around Christmas. The layover's Canaan. When I got off the bus in Canaan, it was negative 15 degrees. And you're basically naked. They made us stand outside there in 20 minutes in a negative 15, 20. That I will never forget that moment in my life. Like 20, 30 of us sitting out there, you know, trembling. Holy shit, man. You know, I've never heard anybody talk about that because I know people have felt that. Whoever's experienced that, I know they would never forget that. Up in those mountains in PA. And then when I get in there, I'm supposed to be there for 2 weeks. A fucking prison guard gets stabbed. 2013, they locked the fucking jail down. So by the time I get the school kill, I made it, right? Somebody from the 845 there, right? We connect. I pull out my paperwork for him. We hit instantly. We're from the same neighborhood. He's from Newburgh. I'm from Middletown. He's from the indictment before me. We know some people that know each other. Great. 3 days later, they call me to the fucking, what do you call it?
Lieutenant's office?
Yes. You got warrants, you can't be on the camp. Oh, man. I was pissed. So I get to the hole, and you know how the hole is. You got one phone call a month. And the only thing you could do is fight with that pen, right? So I'm in this hole. I got a certain amount of time. Now, these charges were charges that were already taken care of, and I didn't even have a warrant from. One of them, there was 2 charges, okay? So the one charge was from like 2007, and it was already taken care of. I had to just write Walkill and my lawyer, get that taken care of. The other one, when I was in Salt Lake City working, I ended up getting a fucking DUI, bro. And oh my God, that was experience in itself, you know? I met this Mexican girl. She's with 2 Mexican guys. I'm in downtown Utah. I'm fucking pissed drunk. I'm driving her car. I get pulled over. The fucking 2 kids and there was a girl in the back just open the doors and just bolt out. The girl stayed. I end up getting a DUI, right? And then the girl calls me a few days later when I get out of jail, asks me to pay for a fucking thing to get taken out. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, your friends fucking ran out of the car. I wouldn't even got a DUI if that didn't happen. You know, I guess they were illegal or something. I don't know. Pretty sure, you know, that's what the case happened was. So anyway, this caught up to me because I never went to court because I got indicted, right? When I was in Salt Lake City, I was supposed to go to court. February, I got indicted, missed my court date. So now I had to fight that case from the hole. I ended up managing to do this, bro. I fucking made it happen. I ended up, I think within 3 or 4 weeks' time, there was no way I was not gonna fucking hit the land of milk and honey and I have to go to a low, you know? So about 3 weeks, I know I spent Christmas in there. I spent New Year's in there. And they end up releasing me, bro.
And you stay on the camp the rest of your sentence?
I stay on the camp the rest of my sentence.
Wow.
And the best...
You got lucky.
Dude, did I get lucky? Let me tell you. Ian, if I never went to this camp, I wouldn't even be who I am today. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I told you earlier, I didn't go to school, shit like that. I didn't have a role model. Going to this camp was like Harvard for me, bro. I'm not even kidding you. For free. And I took every single advantage that I can. I took this time that I had at that camp to focus on my goal, which was furniture. Furniture's my life. That's been my life. It's, what I wanted to pursue. So to do that, and also to take any class that I can. So instead of taking the routes that I used to go and trying to get myself into mess and trying to start hustling and, getting on the cell phones, as soon as I got to the camp, you know what I did? I reached out. I was ready to 845 car. I reached that out. I'm also a Russian Jew. I got right into the Jew car, right? And I ended up becoming basically like the head of the Jewish car,
That's funny.
Yeah, and let me tell you, we had some iconic people in there, bro. I was with the inventor of Travelocity, the creator, Frank Kogan. I was with the owners of Ink Brothers, Ink Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
We had the doctors, couple lawyers. We had the guy that founded Jiffy Lube. He was teaching a lot of classes. Some really smart people. You had senators. There was a New York senator in there, a Boston senator. So really, really, really smart people. So and then there was the New Jersey's wives doctor, Dr. Rand, awesome dude, man, really smart guy. And I stuck around these people, but I also, I'm a jailer, so I had to, make sure I had myself taken care of. I had to make sure I have a hustle, and I had to make sure that my people were taken care of, right? So when I got to the jail, I met some really good people. I pulled my paperwork out, so that was allowed me to get to the right people on the jail. I got right to the warehouse, right? And this is for anybody that, God forbid, if you have to go to federal prison and you're a good guy, right? Get to that warehouse, man. Because if you get to that warehouse, you run to jail. In Schuylkill, I had 2 trucks. I had, there was 2 trucks and a flatbed. I touched everything that came into the prison first. Food, chemicals, socks, jumpers, boots, materials, anything that's jail issued, that came to us first. So that's the hustle, right? You got bananas, you got all that. But we also had it organized, I would say. One dude that became really good friends of mine, and his name was Smack. We had Smack. We had YO. One of the Boston guys was holding down for his, and then there was an Italian guy. So it was all of us that ran this warehouse. We all had our positions. So I took care of my Jewish guys, right? Everybody had their own people that they, nobody stepped on their toes. Everybody had respect. You know what I'm saying? And we did our thing, bro. And the stories you hear about, fucking people going off the fucking mountain. We're not gonna say any names, but let me tell you something. Schuylkill, we had it jumping. Fuck, man. You want cannolis, you'll get cannolis, bro. Newport's only $20 a pack.
You were living large.
Living large, bro. McDonald's. My friends used to wake me up, shake my ankle, fucking bottle of Hennessy, still in the brown bag, bro. Still in the 5th bottle, Amazing shit. And, I also was the type of person, because, it's very segregated, right? I'm not a segregated person. And I'm not the type of person that follows trends in a way. Like, you know what I mean? So I did social, the Indians, like the Native Americans, right? I really, spoke to a little bit of everybody. And what a blessing it was. I can't tell you how something so negative was able to turn into such a blessing, because I got so much knowledge. I learned about stocks. I learned about trading stocks, charts. We studied Investor Business Daily every day. We had a class every day on it. There was a lot, man. And I had a lot of time to be able to sit in that law library. I never read fiction books with the fake books, whatever, novels. And never again have I touched that. I got myself into financial literacy books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know, the Russian guy introduced me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then I read all his books, Cash Flow Crowd, everything. So, that's why I say it was like a Harvard for me. Because if I didn't have that, I would have still came home to the same mentality, right? And I realized like the whole time I was doing it the wrong way. You know, the opportunities are endless. But, I also learned something that very important. When, you know how when they say when you speak something, it comes to truth. All right, so I came home, I did violate. I had one violation. And when I was in the yard and I was talking to Dr. Sachikov, right? And everybody does the spinning, the walks, right? Everybody's walking. We used to walk a lot, and I'm telling them, we're talking about probation and parole, and because of my experience, I had a negative view. And I came up with a scenario to him. And I said, what if you're just one day, you decide to go to your friends to a bar, hang out, and there's an idiot there, and next thing you know, you get in a fight, you're getting arrested, you're violating parole, right? He says, oh, no, it never happened. Well, when I got out, all right, I ended up getting out in January 2014 to halfway house. I had 7 months halfway house. And that ended up happening to me just like that. The night before Thanksgiving, I ended up going upstate. I ended up coming to the halfway house in the Bronx. I stayed my whole time in there, believe it or not. I didn't want to do home confinement. I didn't want to go back upstate. And I got a job right away as soon as I came home. And I ended up becoming the #1 salesperson out of the whole company. And things were going great. I bought a BMW 3 months into the halfway house. I couldn't even bring it to the halfway house. And then I started getting hatred from, the people that were running the halfway house and shit like that, So, but the hunger and everything was paying off. That the choices that I made to stay away from the negativity and to, that fire that is in you when you're in prison, that's starving, you can take that and turn it into such a positive thing. It's such an advantage if you know how to use it. There's certain people that will take it and go into a depression, get miserable. But then if you know how to take it and use it as fuel, what an advantage you have, man.
I love that.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's a blessing in that way, but you also got to realize not everybody has the opportunity to be in a camp. Some places do have to be in that USP where, every day is a struggle, and you got to have a knife on you every day. You don't know if you're going to make it.
But the same lesson could still be learned from those facilities.
Absolutely. And it's whatever you put yourself into is what you get yourself into. And I learned about respect in prison too. I think anybody that goes to prison will really learn about respect in prison. I would say that's where I really learned about it. And that's really also what makes you shape, that really shaped me as well.
So what does your life look like now?
So since then, I did violate, right? I got another year from that. I had to go in front of the same federal judge for violation. And because everything was well and I had, no dirty urines, it was just literally one issue. She actually congratulated me, and she was like, listen, I'm going to count it, run it concurrent. And a few months later, I ended up getting off of supervised release early. And then after that, during that time, my father had a heart attack, and I had plans to go back to Queens. But something told me, I had to go back and work with Dad because that's where everything started. And so I went back there and just caused a lot of issues, man. I caused, because of my childhood trauma, Ian, and still because of, at this point, I still haven't even really got to really heal. I was able to retrain my brain, but that's not healing in a way. It's a part of it, but trauma works in crazy ways. So from 2012 to 2018, I was completely sober. I got out of jail from that violation. I came back, worked. I broke my foot. And fuck, man, I got prescribed to oxycodone. And because of, I think, all the shit that was going on in my life at the time also, I mean, financially, I was doing the best I've ever done in my life. But you know what they say, when more money, more problems, right? And at this time is when I was really learning about betrayal, I guess, and for the people that I thought that I would be able to trust to be able to have my back, really, you know, kind of, it turned into kind of a thing where, you know, fucking cryptocurrency came, you know, a lot of people in my family made money off of cryptocurrency. And there was like a lot of envy came around. And I ended up buying a house with this girl, and this is where I end up getting more civil lawsuit knowledge, you know. I buy a house with this girl, and I put up all the cash. And because I bought a house before, I couldn't take advantage of a first-time home buyers program. So we agreed to put just the mortgage on her name, and I put the cash up, but I made a contract. I made sure that I had a contract made just in case she didn't put my name on the deed or things, you know. So it was to protect both of us. And she breached the contract right away. She called the lawyer the day before, told him to keep my name off the deed. That came into a traumatic situation that really a lot happened. So during that happened, I had the police kick in my door, all right? When this started, after we closed on that house, I find out about the deed about 2 months later when it comes in. I don't tell her about it. I call the lawyer. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? Why is my name on the deed? We had many meetings about it. I paid you $800 extra to make this contract. We're number one on the deed says they were supposed to both be named as tenants in common. You were very aware. And then he came out to me and told me that the day before closing, he was advised to keep me off of the deed and that I'm going to have to pursue in legal action. So for 6 months, I'm fighting with this girl. And because I didn't have any emotional regulation and literacy, and I didn't know how to really soothe my emotions, I started, using drugs to cope. And during this time, my sister ends up dying from a fucking fentanyl overdose, dude, from a fake Roxy in Texas, you know? So there was a lot of traumatic shit going on where I basically was losing my mind, and all of our family was going through a lot. And so I ended up serving this girl with a lawsuit. 3 days after I served her with a lawsuit, she went and served a false order of protection to get me removed from the property, okay? New York State sheriffs show up to my house, and the guy's name is Larry Catone, right? Bald-headed, retired piece of shit, Larry Catone, from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. They come to my home. They read me an order of protection. I don't fight the order of protection. I tell them, give me 10 minutes. I have my dog. I have my kids' stuff, because at this time I have custody of my kids and my son. And I just need to grab my stuff, but you're not coming to my home. And this is on camera, right? And they tried to strong arm me in my house. And if you could picture, all right, when I'm in jail, I am the type of person, I am if what's the words they say? I be bucking, right? When I go to jail, like, let's say, I'll give you an example. When I was in federal prison, I'm a Jew, right? On a holiday, somebody stole my fucking prison meal. I took the microwave and I slammed the microwave on the ground. Nobody was eating, okay? And it ended up being one of my co-defendants playing a fucking joke on me. I ended up getting 90 days in the box, going to the old jail, all right? I end up getting another 90 days because the sergeant comes through. There's a problem with my toilet, and she doesn't want to get the plumber to come and fix my toilet. As soon as the doors popped open for my shower, I threw the fucking mattress on the fucking tier, everything. I'm one of those, I be fucking bugging. I'll flood the fucking unit, all of that. I really don't care. When I'm in there, I get in a different type of mode, you know? And
so the cops show up at your house.
Yeah, this is
when they were giving you the order of protection.
They show up in my house, they strong arm me, they start fighting me, 2 of them. And it happened so quick. Only thing I remember is we're on the ground and I start yelling, you're violating my rights. I got this on the Ring camera. I get up, I go to run upstairs. They shoot me with the fucking taser, but then they start running outside. I pulled the fucking dart out of my arm. I felt myself like dropping. Like I've never got shot with a taser before, but that's exactly what it feels like. It makes you lose like you just drop, like lose energy. So I was able to pull the taser out. So now I go on top of the roof and I start this fucking big thing. The tanks are coming. And this is from the same jail that I grew up in, so everybody knows me. The tanks that they're coming are all the correctional officers and everybody, the turtles, right? So I'm telling them now, I'm having a conversation with them. I'm on top of the roof. I climb on the window. I'm like, you motherfuckers, you violated my rights. You came in my house. You're not allowed to do that, you know? So I have a standoff with them for about 3 hours. This is where the bald-headed piece of shit comes into play, okay? My mother, like I said, was the diner. She worked at the diner. She knew this guy's father, who was a captain in the sheriff's department, and this is who I was having a beef with at the time. My mother's in California, and I'm calling her. I'm like fucking barricaded in my house, and there's 100 cop cars in the tanks, and so they're trying to negotiate with me to come out. And so now they got Mr. Catone calling me. And he's like, hey. And I speak to my mother. He's like, listen, I talked to him. Just, try to trust him. They're not going to hurt you. And honestly, the most thing that I was fearing was that they were going to kill me if I came outside. And so he tells me, he says, come outside. Don't worry. I'm going to meet you there. Everything's going to be okay. Da-da-da-da-da. And at this time, all my girlfriend's stuff is out of the house. All my stuff is there. I have over $35,000 in cash in a safe upstairs. I go to the door, I open the door, fucking 20 red beams shining on me. He's not there. I close the door. I call him. I'm like, yo, motherfucker, you're lying to me, bro? Like, seriously? I'm like, he comes and meets me this time. And now you have to, I have PTSD. I just got like tased basically fighting this. This is a very traumatic like situation for me, So when he gets me in custody, he takes my keys. He puts me in the back of the cop car, and he comes up to me and he says, your mother's worried sick. Give me your phone. Unlock it. I need to call her. Right? He goes into my fucking phone. The door's still open. I'm sitting in the back of the sheriff's car, but the door's still open, and none of these people had body cams. None of them. And he starts yelling to a couple of his officers, how do I get into the Ring camera app?
Oh, they wanted to delete the footage?
They did delete the footage.
This is what you're on probation for now?
No, this case got dropped.
Oh, this case got dropped.
You better believe it, because one of the videos they forgot to erase. The video of them, when I was on top of the roof, I grabbed one of the cameras and I brought it inside. So I got a video of them searching my house without a warrant when I told them not to.
Wow.
So that ended up getting the case dismissed, but I ended up having to pay all this money for a lawyer, right? The same lawyer that I fucking was supposed to protect me from my girlfriend from getting me removed from the property gets another $3,500, right? I get traumatized. I lose $35,000, Ian. I got robbed, bro. Those sheriffs, I don't know who did it to this day. It was either the ex-fucking bitch or it was one of the sheriffs, because my $35K got lost.
It never ends, huh?
No. They gave my keys to the girl, which had my keys to everything on there, my safe, everything. And then when I was able to come back to the property, everything was folded nicely in my pickup truck. All my shit, they moved in the house, fucking motherfuckers, bro.
Wow.
You know, so that gets dropped. Now, during this time, you know, the main thing that I think that I want to try to bring awareness, and also this is, you know, there's a case going on right now that's making everybody's talking about it. It's the kid down in Ohio, Quentin Nixon. I don't know if you heard of it.
No.
Okay, there's a kid in Ohio. He's representing himself, okay? He was in a situation where he had to basically kill, somebody got killed. They were all in psychosis episodes, and two people had guns and basically tried to either rob him or whatever happened, but he ended up getting one of the guns in a struggle fight and shooting the people, and they ended up locking him up for the murder. So the same tactics that they used in this kid's trial, they used in my trial. That's what I'm going to talk about coming up. So during this time, after all this, right, I ended up getting into a really bad mental state for about a year and a half after my sister passed away. And during this time, you know, the people that I was supposed to, you know, look forward to be able to go to and stuff like that, they were all devastated as well. So it ended up turning into a very abusive family relationship. And so what I was doing at the time, I was getting high, right? Fentanyl, cocaine, and basically staying up for days and, you know, getting into these psychosis episodes. And it sucks, man, you know, because this is, I don't know what it is that's going on, but the cocaine that is going around right now is different than back in, I don't know if it's the cut or whatever. I mean, there's still good pure cocaine out there. It's pure whatever, but something is causing people to have these psychosis episodes because it's becoming very common. And because I'm in treatment, I'm like very engaged in treatment, mental health, substance abuse, 5 days a week, like almost, you know? So, and I'm seeing how popular it is. And it's very dangerous. And with my case, okay, it was a situation where I was in a psychosis episode for a few days. And Ian, I'm not the type of person to call the police, you know? But at this time, I was in a home with two people that I love very much. But endured a lot of unnecessary pain from. So I think that with complex trauma and cocaine, for somebody in my type of situation, it would make me feel like that my family's trying to kill me. And that's exactly what happened. I was in a very, very bad psychosis episode. And I ended up calling the fucking cops, bro. Right? I tell them I'm in fear of my life. I want a cop to come here and I want to leave this home. And I took myself there with an Uber. And when I get there, it's me, my mother, my stepfather, and there were some conversations that were had that there was some things that were said earlier in the day. And then when I brought it up to my mother and asked her why they said it, why this was said, she didn't give me an answer and she just started crying. So what it did was it made me think that that was going to be my last night living. So I called the police. I no longer want to be there anymore, right? And this is in the same living room where my stepfather, had me removed over a child support check. He starts saying, hang up the phone. I don't want the cops at this house. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're telling me that? Been calling the fucking police on me my whole fucking life, and you don't want the cops here? They don't come, okay? I have to call the police back. Excuse me. I have to call the police back, and I tell them, I am not hanging this phone up until there's an officer here, and I'm in fear of my life. Cop gets there. One officer walks into the house. I try to explain about the day, earlier in the day, and then the early in the day basically consisted of full-blown psychotic symptoms, which was I was hearing voices. I was actually, it's crazy, but I was hearing my girlfriend being raped in my head, and I was thinking that it was real. And I was also thinking, and I was also seeing people. So earlier in the day, I was in certain places in public chasing invisible people with weapons. And they were able to confirm this because there was cameras in the area, right, of the places that this was happening. So when the cop comes in, I tell him I'm in fear of my life. I tried to explain to him the things that I was going through. But what I found out was, before he came inside, my stepfather manipulated him. He got to him before, because he knew I was calling him. So during this time, somehow he snuck outside with the dog to walk the dog, caught the cop outside, right? Gave his own narrative to try to make me just look crazy, because my family hides a lot of the shit that shouldn't have been hidden, right? And what that did was that made the police officer not take my claims seriously. And it came to a situation where the cop said that he was going to call backup. You know, things they wear right here? It's like, I don't have any service on here, and I have to go outside to call backup. And I asked him to just get me out of here, and I told him, I will go to rehab tomorrow. That's my plan. I don't want to sleep here. And right before this, my stepfather gave me a handful of Xanax to take to try to get me to calm down, which was the worst thing I think that he could have did. So he says, okay, let me go call backup. I'm going outside, and if you could imagine, a glass, front door, right? And then they got the glass door in front of it that's kind of like that swings open to get into the door. That you go into a front house, you got the glass door that's like the first door and then the main door. So just the glass door was there. The main door was open because he came into the house. So I told him 3 times when he was leaving, please don't leave the house. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. He leaves. I hear a glass break. I pick up a fucking knife. I hold it up to my mother. My stepfather comes to grab me. And somehow my mother and my stepfather both ended up getting stabbed. And from there, I went into a complete mental only thing I could remember was that I dropped on the floor, was screaming and yelling. I thought my girlfriend was in the attic. This whole time I'm screaming for her to come downstairs. My mother and my stepfather are stabbed, laying in the garage, screaming, Danny, Chris is not here. Chris is not here. And I'm yelling, I don't know what's real. I don't know what's fake. Only way to explain it is your brain gets hijacked. Imagine that. Imagine your brain gets hijacked. You no longer have control of thoughts in your head, and you no longer can tell what's real or what's fake. That's a fucking scary situation.
Did they survive?
Thank God. Yeah. Thank God, man.
And what happened? You ended up getting arrested?
I did. Yep. Now, this is a really important part too, because this is where the justice system comes into play, right? These police officers wrote this police report up to protect themselves. They wrote it in such a way where does it say, there's questions that says, does it look like he was having any mental issues? Does it look like he was on drugs? They put no, right? They put that I called and asked for an ambulance when the police call doesn't say that, right? So they basically manipulated the police report. Then they manipulated my parents, my mom. That was the police's fault. I don't know what the procedure, if there is a procedure for mental health or if anybody that's in fear for their life, but I know that if I was a public servant, I mean, I'm not, but even just in general, if I know that there's somebody scared for their life and they're telling me not to leave them, I'm not gonna fucking leave them, like, you know? And fuck, man, it turned into a fucking, you know, you always gotta look, you know, I have to look at it this way. This happened on December 24th, 2022.
2 years ago.
Christmas. This was on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or something like that, right? You know, my mother, I'm not gonna let that. I have to let that be my resurrection. I was in such a bad place. I didn't know what my main core, you know, there's a core issue always to when it comes to addiction, any type of use, any type of addiction. And from my learning, what I've learned from me, it's been trauma, bro. And not learning healthy ways to cope with the trauma or learn the skills to be able to get yourself to a point where you don't let a trigger get you into fight or flight. Because with complex trauma or PTSD, you have within seconds from the time that you get triggered to be able to tell yourself in your mind, I got this, you're okay, everything's all right, before you fucking snap. Because that's, you know, that's what happens. PTSD, you snap, you lose control. That's what it is. You lose control completely of your emotions, right? And nothing good comes from that.
Do you feel like you're in a better place today?
Oh my God. I'm emotionally stable. I'm emotionally like literate also. So now I'm able to tell the difference of what's going on, you know, and the main thing, I always have to look at myself first. Accountability is such an important thing in life, right? If you can't take accountability for anything, you're not gonna be able to heal for anything. And if you're in a relationship with somebody that can't take accountability and it's affecting you, you gotta remove yourself. It's your fault if you continue to deal with something like that. You know, you gotta remove yourself from it. But yeah, definitely 100%. I would say that I'm in a very, really great place. It's the first time in my life that I was able to say, hey, you know what? Money's not important right now. You know? I need to work on myself. You know, I want to be able to be there for the people that I love. And I want to be able to have a relationship where I'm not blaming somebody for the way that I'm reacting.
How's your relationship with your mom now?
I chose not to have one. So the court just got finished very, very recently. I'm still on probation, but within 2 years, there's there was order protections, of course, and stuff like that. But because of the emotional literacy I do have, I know better than to be able to engage with my mother again and have a relationship, because I know she hasn't healed. And she doesn't know the skills, or she doesn't even really realize what's going on. And I tried to instruct her to try to go get the, get the knowledge, and because there's a lot of family issues that are going on. And when parents don't know how to deal with these issues, they'll put a Band-Aid on it and just let the thing get bigger. And something I don't want to be involved with, But it's really important, because when I got locked up for this, I got these charges, right? Assault first, 2 times, assault, criminal possession of a weapon 2 times. I'm facing 50 years. And I knew right away that if I wanted to take it to trial, I would have been able to take it to trial, and I would have been able to beat it. But I also have to look at it that this was a situation with somebody that I love. And instead of taking it to trial, taking accountability, instead of putting everybody through the pain and everything like that, I would rather do that, learn from it, grow from it, heal from it, right? But if this was a justice system, the judge, I feel, should have been like, oh my God, what the hell happened here, officer? Did this kid call twice? Why does it say he wasn't on drugs? He was in a psychosis episode, and he even admitted to you at the scene that he was taking drugs for a few days. Like, that's not how things are supposed to go. And in a system where there is justice, I would imagine, because of the way that the professional officer that's trained, handled the situation, and 2 people got stabbed, that they should be held accountable for it, especially because of the fact that I called. See, that's the main thing. If I didn't call the cops, then it's a completely different story. But I called. I did the only thing that somebody is able to do in a situation like that. And then, because of the way it went down, where there was actions that could have been taken to avoid that, which the officer decided against from believing the words I was telling him. And then, of course, they used my parents to, go along with them. And instead of my mother and my stepfather being able to see what really happened and to be able to hold them accountable, because I wasn't able to contact them. And during this time, I had an open case. All right? This is another thing that needs to be brought up before we end this. I got charged in Clearwater, Florida, sober with a DUI. You hear me, Ian? I got 3 DUIs in my lifetime. 2 of them, I was fucked up. I was in psychosis, one of them. The other one, I was with those Mexicans, right? This third one, I was sick with strep throat. I just went to the doctor earlier that day. I went to get my Z-Pack because I'm allergic to penicillin. I go home, I take a nap. My mother tells me to go get honey. I get pulled over by the fucking Clearwater Police Department. They pull me out of the car. They had me and I'm telling them, I got the paperwork in the car showing that I'm positive for strep throat. I was there earlier today. They take me out of the thing to do a sobriety test. They accuse me of drinking alcohol or being on some type of stimulant with the red eye thing. I think they were saying a stimulant or alcohol or antidepressant, whatever. I offered to blow. They didn't let me blow. After the sobriety test, they locked me up. And I tried to fight it. For 2 years, I demanded trial. They brought up false charges against me. False felony charge against me. I ended up pleading guilty to the fucking...
It never ends with you, Danny.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Well, what matters is that you made it through it. You know, you're here now. There was a positive outcome. and you just got to keep pushing forward.
Right. You know, and the main thing is hopefully we see a change, bro. I really, really do. You know, the 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment is an amendment that is really hurting a lot of people. And it's an amendment that's taught to us in school, right? In a complete opposite way than what it really is. The 13th Amendment, they tell us in school, was to abolish slavery. It was to make slavery illegal. But it's the complete opposite. It was actually the amendment to make slavery legal, just under the cases where somebody commits a crime, right? What are all these undocumented immigrants doing as soon as they come through the border? They're committing a crime. America's not the land of the free. There's a price to pay. See, all these illegal immigrants, they don't know what's happening to them. They don't know that most of these people are going to be turning into slaves. Our jails are at an all-time low. Somebody's got to fill them. Vanguard, Geo Group, right? These are the people their beds are low. Doesn't it make sense to bring these traumatized people that have been living in poverty to this country to get DUIs, right? All these things. Got to see what's really going on.
There's a lot that needs to be changed.
You know? What's really going on, man? But if that 13th Amendment, just imagine if there was a prison, if there was a justice system where inmates were able to make minimum wage. Can you imagine that? Imagine if people were actually able to make a minimum wage and be able to feed the families, or if somebody went to jail for child support for those 90 days they were there, be able to pay their child support, you know? The reason why I wanted to come and talk about this is because I want so bad to see a change. Terribly, you know? And I feel terrible for the kids that are going through it right now. You know? I really do.
Well, thank you, Danny, for coming here today to share your incredible story.
Doubt, man.
And
appreciate you bringing me in.
Of course, man. Keep your head up. Keep pushing forward.
No doubt.
You got a lot of life in you. So put it to good use.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed too is that God, right? There's very special people that go to prison. God puts people in these situations. Not everybody is built to be able to go through a life that I went through. And for me to still have compassion, right? For me to still not be bitter and not to be able to really change, right? And still be me and be the good-hearted person that I am. God creates people and puts them in certain circumstances. And there is modern-day prophets all over the world in prisons. And they should be recognized, you know? Like Khalif Browder, poor kid. Was able to make a change from his death. Suffered greatly. But yeah, keep doing your thing, Ian, man. You know? I really love what you did. You came out and you're a great inspiration for people that are in there right now to show them that they have somewhere to go, you know? I'm in the furniture industry, you know? So that's what I do. You go to FurnitureMattressPlus.com, all right? Right after this, I'm going to the furniture market, and that's what I love to do, and, I'm going to keep doing it.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll have that link to your furniture shop in the bio.
No doubt, man. Thanks, bro.